So now let's talk about using modules in the Python world. So one of the interesting things with Python is essentially every function that you're going to require, you're going to need to import a module to be able to get access to it. So again, if you use almost any other programming language, you have built-in functions that you have access to, so you can just type out the code and do it, and it's no big deal. Again, in the PHP world, if you want a random number, if you want to be able to send out SMTP emails, if you want to do any number of things, there's just simply built-in functions. You call the built-in function and away you go. In the Python world, it's not the same thing. At the beginning of the script, you actually have to import either the entire module with all of its functions or a specific function out of a module, and then once it's been imported, then you get access to it throughout the rest of your script. And so that's going to be an important thing just to keep in mind, whether you want your script to sleep, basically pause for an amount of time, get a random number, do any number of things, you are going to have to import in order to be able to do that. Now, when you're wondering about why you have to import the modules and the functions, there's basically two reasons, right? One is from a security standpoint. So basically, if your script doesn't have the ability to do something, then a hacker can't inject an attack into your script to do the thing that it's not able to do, right? If your script has no ability to access the internet or has no ability to access the operating system, it's just not built into your particular script, even if a hacker is able to compromise your script and put in an injection, there's simply not going to be anything there to be able to fire off that injection attack, and so that's why it's there from a security standpoint. The other thing to be thinking about is namespace. So in the Python world is really big for open source programming, right? It's really interesting, right? So you go to pypy.org for modules, and you can see there's just so many. There's just so many. Lots and lots of people building lots and lots of modules. The problem is when you come to things like function names, right? You know, computer geeks are not necessarily the most creative folks in the world. So you may run into a problem where different modules use the exact same function name to do different things, right? So what we're talking about with a namespace is what happens when you have three functions that are named the same thing. You then call the name of the function what is actually going to trigger, what's going to occur there. So one of the nice things about being forced to import the modules, import the functions, is it keeps the namespace clean so you don't run into any of those kind of issues. So those are some of the reasons why Python does things this way. So now there are a few ways to import the modules and functions into your Python script so that you get access to their functionality. The first way is to simply import the entire module and all of the functions that go along with it. So import random is going to import the random module. So the random module has a bunch of different functions under it, right? And so basically what we can see here is we have num equals the random module, and then we're going to call the function that we care about, so rand_int. This comes up with a random integer, and we say between 0 to 10. So we want to go to the random module, rand_int, give us a number between 0 to 10. That is going to be assigned a number, and then we're going to print number out, right? So if we're going to do sleep, let's say, so sleep is when you pause a program, you would import the time module, and then you do time.sleep, and then however long you wanted to sleep for. So the module named first, then the function, and then whatever arguments, and then when we run this, again, we get a nice little random number down here. Woo! We get 0, right? We run it again. We get a random number of 4. So again, even something as simple as a random number, you are going to have to import the module for it so that you get access to the function. But the question is what if you don't like to do all of that typing when you want to call a function and you only want access to one function out of a module? Well, what we can do is we can do from random, so from the module, import the specific function that we care about. So from random, all we want is rand_int. You can do multiple functions out of the module. So you do comma, and then the next function, comma, the next function, comma, the next function, and that's how you would import the specific functions. Now notice down here, so now we have number equals just rand_int. Since we're importing the function by name, we don't have to have the module name here. So we can simply call randint 0 to 10 like we did before, and then print out the number. So from the module, import the specific functions, then you're able to access those specific functions by name only and use them in your script. Again, we run this and we get a nice little random int there. So that's basically how you are able to import specific functions. Now, one of the things that might make your life easier from a typing standpoint is the ability to create aliases, right? So again, especially since we're going out and we're using open source projects within our code, sometimes people make really long names for modules, like Beautiful Soup 4 is a module name, and you don't necessarily want to have to use that whenever you're calling specific functions. So you can do an alias, right? So you can do import random, so import the module as whatever the alias is you want it to be. So I'm just simply saying the silly name here so that you know you can put anything in there, right? So if you have a long name, you can alias it down to something shorter. We do num equals now silly name dot randint 0 through 10, and then we can print out the number. So this is how you're able to create an alias if for some reason the module name is too long or too cumbersome. You do get into some weird things when you're using other people's code, like for some reason with OpenCV, right? When you import OpenCV, many times they'll use an alias to go from like CV to like CV2, that type of thing. And so this is something just to keep in mind, especially when you're dealing with other people's scripts and you're trying to figure out what's going on. Many times they'll use aliases that might not actually make a hell of a lot of sense to you. So you may have to go up here to figure out what's going on again with the whole namespace environment to understand better what the code is supposed to do. Again, just to show you that the random number works, woo, we got a random number of 4. Now, the final way to import functions into your Python script is use the wildcard of all. To be clear, this is generally frowned upon, but sometimes, it's one of those things in the Python world, you might actually need it for your specific project. Basically, as we did before, right, from the random module, and then we do import, and remember how we just had the function name, and I said you could do multiple functions? Well, basically what we do with the star here is we say we want to bring in all functions by their name that are related to the random module. What we're able to do then is we can do num equals, and then we can call any of those functions directly by their name. So when we imported random, we got access to all the functions in random, but you'd have to do random.randint, random.whatever the function was to get access to it. When you do it this way, you're importing all of the functions from the random module, but you can access them just using their particular function name and go on. This is a lot easier for typing. You don't have to do so much typing, but you do have to be careful with that whole namespace thing, because since you're basically importing every single function that this module has, if you have many modules up here where you do that, you might run into a problem where different modules, again, have the same function name in order to do different tasks, and you might run into a problem. So this is good for testing purposes and lab purposes, and when you're trying to figure things out. Once you've figured out what functions you need, then just put in the very specific functions that you need for your script so that you don't run into problems later. So that's the basic idea for using modules in the Python world. Again, any kind of function that you're going to need, you're almost always going to need to import a module in order to be able to do that. There are many core modules, so things like sleep or random, those are core modules to Python. You get those modules and those functions when you install Python, but we've also had a class on using pip. So if you need other functionality such as requests, so we use that a lot, that allows us to go and access websites. That's a stock standard normal module, but for some reason it's just not brought in as a core. You would use pip install to install that module from pypy.org, bring that down into your environment so that you can use it past then. So basically, again, it's one of those things when you're doing Python, if you want to be doing a certain task in Python, you may want to just do a little bit of Google searching or possibly use something like ChatGPT to say, I want to do X, I want to do whatever, what module should I install in order to do that? And then you'll get 10 different answers and 1,000 different arguments on why one of those answers is the best one, and then you pick the module that will work for you. But this is the basic idea of how you use modules, and again, you're going to be doing this in almost every script you create.